recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 74 of the Do It Fix Shit Today podcast. I am here with Darius. What up, Darius?
What's up, guys? How's it going, Hannah?
It's going good. It's going good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was just telling you, it's my 17th wedding anniversary. So today is an epic day.
Hell yeah. Congratulations. Yeah. That's awesome. That's super awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm stoked that you're spending some time with me to chat about all of the, I don't know, about you, about Run Tech Club, going into like the granular of it, how you got started, the background, all the fun stuff. So
yeah,
before we dive in, thank you for being on here today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Excited to chat.
Yes. So you are no stranger to the startup background. You've been a founder and CEO, you've been a strategy director, you've been a chief product officer, like you've been in the world of startups. And so to kind of start the baseline of this conversation, have you always been in that sort of space? Have you done the corporate 9 to 5 and be like, ugh, this isn't for me. I like the startup culture. Like, talk to me about that. Like, what pulls you to that environment?
Yeah, no, for sure. I have actually never taken officially a 9 to 5 job. In fact, my journey into tech started in music. I was a musician and a recording engineer and producer. And before I started my first tech company, I worked in the music industry. Really, actually, since I was 16, I've been in it. And so for me, the curiosity and was really the driving force. When I was younger, I thought I was just a rebel. But later, as I got a little bit more mature and super wise, I realized it was just this obsession with curiosity and like asking questions. Where can I be contributing the most? And just being extremely self-aware. And that really, was for me the thought process driving everything else that I do for Run Tech Club, and also like running companies or building companies and helping founders now, right?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by startups just because the path forward isn't always clear. Like you have to be, like you mentioned, self-aware. You have to be so involved in like the implementation feedback, like constantly having to adjust. Like there isn't a road forward and you have to kind of just trust the process. And like, I don't know if you've heard the quote where like the car can only see the headlights in front of you, but you know you're going to get to your destination. It's kind of that mindset. So, you mentioned being never working in a 9 to 5. And so what kind of fueled you? Because I mean, you have like, I'm not talking, I did some research. I looked at your LinkedIn. I mean, that's where we went. That's where we went for this.
Yeah.
So I mean, like chief product officer, strategy director, founder and CEO, chief marketing officer. Have you always found like that non-clear path more attractive than something that was like super black and white, not necessarily your path already laid out for you, so to speak?
Yeah. No, I mean, being able to see not necessarily the future, but for me, I sometimes actually envy people doing a 9 to 5. And just to clarify, there's absolutely no knock on that.
Yeah.
At the core, I've always believed that everyone's creative, not artsy, but everyone's creative. I think we're all born to problem solve. And we use the word 9 to 5. And these days, like with remote work and everything's changing, I think that definition is really evolving. There are people who are just making an impact, right? Like they're an impact team player in their company, working 9 to 5. They're not just tuned out, right? Being in this autopilot mode. And then there are people who are just absolutely autopilot. But why they're in that mode typically is there's some sort of fear, right? And so for me, I've always been, and I mentioned in music, I've always been fascinated with how, for myself, like how I can really live up to my potential. Like how do you unlock that for myself? But then even further into my career, like how do I help others unlock their potential as well? And seeing what they could be accomplishing, and then helping them do that, whether as a lead in the company or through Run Tech Club. I think that's really where the magic happens for me, is like, recognizing that innate creativity in that person, um, right? And everyone's super unique. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what really drives me.
Yeah. And to piggyback off what you said, like I think each person, something resonates differently with each person. Someone could be in a 9 to 5 and absolutely love it. They love the safety or the not necessarily simplicity, but just the simpler, like this is not even simple, but just the more constructed 9 to 5 that type of job can create for you. Like this is where I am. Maybe it's in person, maybe it's remote, but that sort of concrete 9 to 5 role. But I think there are people out there that are in the 9 to 5 that are curious about other options that are, startups, smaller companies that are fascinated, myself included, are fascinated by the process of like, I picture, a stick on stick, like trying to start a fire. Like that's kind of how I think of a startup, right? It takes a lot of effort, but once you get it going and those sparks start to fly, then it creates.
Yeah.
But that whole spinning of like the stick and creating that ember is fascinating to watch. And so that's kind of why, one of the reasons of many, why I wanted to have you on here, because you've been in that kind of sparking of the fire for so long. You even applied it to a run tech club.
Yeah.
Like you've applied it to make it available for people who are curious about that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with internet and with a podcast, with so much resources out there these days, there's no lack of resources as far as take a class on entrepreneurship. This is take a class on coding, right? All of those different things. And for me, like, I wish I could say I was extremely methodical in how I plotted my career, but in reality, it was a lot of, the right door, right timing, just, it just came at the right place. For me, when I went to before I went to school, I was a classical pianist, and with Asian parents from Hong Kong, they're like, "What do we do with you?" Right? And so typically, this is what happens when you're from like Hong Kong or some of the Asian countries. It's you need to be good at everything, like play the piano, play the violin, but however, please don't be so good that you go ahead and pursue that as a career, right? And that contrast, that mindset was always really challenging for me. Now, I did have really supportive parents, so I love my folks, but my mom didn't really know what to do with me. She did, however, help me figure out that first step, which was she said, "Go and just try it, like just get into the industry, maybe start working." And so when I was 16, I ended up working at a local studio and TV station. And then she said, "Of course, you're going to go to college." So for me, I ended up going to college and tried to figure out what I would do. When I did get to college, though, I realized as good of an education I was getting, if I wanted to work in the music industry, I needed a change because I looked around and all my professors have never actually worked in the music industry. They graduated, taught, and they were career teachers. And so that was, so like I just started asking the right questions and got an internship. And really from there, alongside, like in parallel with my education, I was able to find my way, definitely in the dark. And I had to have that really early belief. But we eventually got there, and that landed me in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned your mom saying, well, just go try it. And I think that's such an amazing, especially from a parent or someone that's like kind of that guardian nature. Just go try. If you try and something happens, but that sort of mindset, it continues to stay with you and it applies with you later in life. Because you now fast forward to like startups being in positions where it's like, this could fail, but I'm going to try it. There's some, like you mentioned, there's faith there. And there's not be able to be afraid to quote unquote fail because you need to try. A lot of startups is like you're trying something new.
Yeah.
You're restarting the engine. So
yeah, I heard like a really good metaphor actually is people keep talking about failing forward in a sense, right? Fail fast. And some costs come with that, right? Like you can see that in Silicon Valley or just the tech industry in general. when a company fails, for example, people lose their jobs, right? But there's a lot of learning that comes from taking that step, especially early on in that journey, what we call 0 to 1. It feels like free falling. And so when you jump off a plane, you do have the parachute and whatnot. At first, it's extremely scary, and you take off and you jump off of it. But at some point, you realize you are free falling, but you're controlling where you are gliding, right?
Yeah.
And so as you sort of get used to like understanding how to navigate that, then you actually get better at it. What we do find really, really important though is failure over time is extremely brutal. And if it's not rooted in something that you truly believe in, startups is not really for everyone. Like not everyone should be starting a company. I do believe that everyone have a place to make impact. Being a founder is a different ballgame, right? Just like the marathon is not for everyone, but I think everyone has almost the human rights. It's in our nature to be able to run and walk and move, right? And so, I see a ton of parallel in that.
Yeah. So that's a great segue into like the next question that I have for you is because you have this, startup background. You mentioned, running. So can you talk to me, people that haven't heard of Run Tech Club? Can you explain to me and our listeners what Run Tech Club is?
Absolutely. Well, Run Tech Club is a run club, but in a nutshell, we are an entrepreneur community. What we do is we help incubate ideas and help community grow. And for those who are looking to incubate an idea, looking to grow, looking to take the company to the next step, looking for funding, Run Tech Club is a community for that. Running is our way to build community as well as just making it accessible for people to find us. And so we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are just looking to connect and grow with other people who are doing really difficult things. Like I find it fascinating when we have technical founders, we have non-technical founders, and in this very similar way, you have people who might not be in the tech industry at all, right? But they're taking on 100 miler, they're doing all these different things. And when you put this group of people together who are just committed to building or applying this mindset to their own lives, right? As human beings first and foremost, like crazy stuff happens, magic happens, right? And so I've been loving to see this community grow, especially like now that we're here. It's like, yes, we started this, but it really is the members who are continually building upon the community and like doing their own things with it, basically using it as their own tool, so to speak.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on the kind of parallel or almost corresponding nature for endurance athletes or runners and kind of doing and applying those lessons learned and discipline, that ambition elsewhere. So to me, it's no surprise that there's not a negative way, but like you can see the correlation as someone who's a runner herself of like, breaking it down from a running perspective. Like, let's say you set a goal for 5 miles, you accomplish that goal and you get curious. What else can this discipline apply to? So then it sparks, startups, entrepreneur mindset, applying your things elsewhere. So it's cool to see it kind of as a multifaceted, multidimensional running community for sure.
Yeah. You can absolutely see the parallel. It's one of the best ways to coach. And I mean, one of the reasons why we started this was because we see, like, truly, we see a lot of capital, people investing in startups. You hear a lot about that. There really isn't a lot of resources or even community that one focuses on helping people play the long game. Because it's one thing to say, okay, when you start out, this is what you need to do. It's another thing to have the courage, the bravery, and or even the radical honesty that is required, right, to do it. And so what happens when you apply all of that to running, to building a company, to just, creating your life, right, growing as a human being? Yeah, the metaphors are endless.
Yeah. I can see your face light up when you talk about it. It's very cool to see like someone who's so passionate about it. You talk about belief and how the world of startups, you have to believe, even if it's where you only can see 50 feet in front of you. And training and running these races can be that same way. If you're not from a running background, like, you use the term like, oh, I've never run a marathon. I'd never do this. But yet people do. I'd never have a startup. I'd never be able to pull that off, yet people do. So it is cool to kind of see that pushing the boundaries can be applied both areas, and that you're able to create an environment where running, entrepreneur, pushing yourself is kind of the boundary or the foundation, if you will, and then you can grow on top of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you first start out, it's this concept that we call dog miles, which is like the mamba mentality, right?
Nice.
You are waking up, and if you're taking on something big, taking on something really epic,
nice.
Sometimes people would say, I don't, like, people count you out. Like, people straight up just say, I don't think you can, like, really, like, how are you going to run a 100-miler, right?
Yeah.
So there comes a point where you might not really be getting that general consensus that you can do this, right? And so how can you apply, like, what are some of those signals that is telling you, you know what, I can do this, right? And so how do you take a step at a time? How do you really start to build towards that, whether it's training for a race or just building a company in that sense? And one thing I would say too is we always talk about control, focus on what you can control. But when you start a company, it's actually the opposite, because when you're building something, most people are focusing on what they would like to bring to this world. What they're not really thinking is, how is it going to be received? And is there really a need from it? Demand is something that we don't control. Like, whatever is in the market that people need or looking for, it exists with or without us being there. It exists whether we have the solution for it or not. And it really is the ability to apply empathy and understand what we're building forward towards, right? And kind of like doing things that don't really necessarily scale, like one customer at a time, and like discover as much as you can. And in a race, sometimes it's very similar. What do you do when things come your way and you can't control? And you prepare for that. Like, I think, especially for a 100-miler, you just ran a 100-miler, right? And there's some things you just have to take the punches, but you prepare your mind to take on the uncontrollables. And that is extremely important for life in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big self-help book gal. Like, I love kind of hearing about, all of the things. And one of the top 5 tips that people talk about is surround yourself with people that are willing to push the boundaries, right? Like the 5 people you surround yourself with are the 5 people that you kind of not amoeba towards, but like you slowly become. So have you used any like that sort of concept when creating Run Tech Club, right? If you're putting all of these entrepreneurs together, these runners, these people that are pushing the boundaries, like you've kind of created this perfect, not even a storm, this perfect environment for really people to kind of just like to shoot up,
Absolutely. I mean, when we say framework, it sounds super nerdy. So I apologize for the audience, but it really is, because when you want to start something, and again, people would say, how do you know you're doing the right thing? Like, why are you doing this podcast, right? That's really the wrong question to be asking, because truly, when you're starting, you attempt to pretend you have more than you already have. Like, hey, I already know this is going to work, or I believe it so much I know it's going to work. That's actually not true, and it's okay to say that you don't have all the answers. And so a classic example in startups is you go and pitch someone who might give you a check, right? And you go in there and you have all of the answers prepared, but all the while you are so early that you actually don't know. So everything is a hypothesis, it's an assumption. They care more about you as a person. How do you validate that? Are you showing up with that superhuman awareness that I don't actually care if I'm right? I care about my vision, so I'm extremely stubborn about that. But I'm quite flexible on the execution, and I just want to get it right. I don't need to be right. I just want to get it right. And so
Hmm.
in that context, and when you put people in that environment where people are just ready to learn, they're ready to not look perfect, right? I mean, we're running together and people just showing up and connecting on a human level. So it allows them to be that. And when you compound that, we were just saying, like, how many sunrises as a group have we experienced over the past coming up 5 years? For 5 years, every Friday, we've been running every single week, and we have not stopped. So the run streak is strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were to describe Run Tech Club in 3 words or phrases, what would you use?
I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say I'm going to use Run Tech Club as my guide.
Okay.
So the word "run" to me is run with it. So it's actually the idea of bravery, like showing up with that courage, because right now job market sucks, right? People are struggling with work, or maybe they've been in their jobs forever and they have never really thought about who they are. And so even after COVID, people are starting to really contemplate like who they are. And so running for me means bravery, means courage. Technology, people don't actually have to be in tech to be a part of this club, which is one of the biggest misconceptions about RTC. Technology is literally just applied knowledge to whatever you do. And we can run away from technology, or we can basically run towards it and say, how do we show up? How do we apply different things, whether it's scientific knowledge or whatever we know that we've learned? How do we apply that to better mankind, right? So we have an amazing group of people who just love, not everyone's got a PhD, but they love to share, they love to learn. And the last is club, which for me is similar to community, but it really is a space. It's a space based on how the group shows up. So we have over almost 1,000 members altogether in different cities. And it really is a space that people know, like, hey, when I'm showing up at a meeting, I almost have the backing of this entire group because we're doing this together. We're doing different things, just like a marathon. We're running our own race, but there's this sense of empowerment that comes from knowing that there's the next guy is doing something just as challenging, if not more challenging than me. And so I always think of that as the guiding, three, I guess, like the 3 words for Run Tech Club.
Yeah, because I mean, based on our previous conversation, and I really wanted to know more about Run Tech Club because I've never heard anything like it, because it's a club, it's a running club, but it's also multifaceted in the fact that you guys have labs, you have membership opportunities where you are like have access to these 1,000 group of people. So can you talk to me a bit more about what are the labs like, and how, like, can you talk about how like that kind of intertwines together? I think I butchered that a little bit, but
no, that's perfect.
Okay.
No, it actually kind of goes into, like, we've been experimenting with how do we show up in a unique way that not just to be different, but understanding and having that empathy, right? Because we are boots on the ground, or sneakers on the ground with our community. I know, lots of cheesy puns, but we love it. And so we've been experimenting with how specifically we show up. And so we truly care about just how people can play the long game, the more long view take on development on a person, right? And so the lab itself, or Vision Lab, is a way for us to empower our community. So one actually really exciting thing is there are 2 parts to it. The first part is it's a platform, it's a dashboard that we are working on making it open source to just anyone to take advantage of, that they can use to build on a project or product or company, as well as tracking progress. The difference is we have an amazing network of advisors who come alongside and actually help you measure progress, right? Actually have you pitch to them, not just to get funding, but to give you true feedback. So instead of you going to an investor and they just say, no, see you later, it's no, but do these 5 things, talk to these 5 people, here are your next steps, right? Like truly investing in the human potential side of founders who are working on missions that's worth investing in.
Mhm.
So that is something that we're working on actually even into 2025 as a collecting like all the experiences from the past like few years, and then even before, right, outside of Run Tech Club, just like work that we've done with other companies. We're looking to really apply that into Vision Lab and beyond.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get this right too, because when we talked about this was super curious to me. You don't necessarily have to be a founder to be in Run Tech Club. You don't have to be in tech to be in Run Tech Club, but you just have to be someone who's interested in personal development.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are different programs where, because the tools are very applicable, and so if someone wants to take advantage of a workshop or how to apply human-centered design to their life, right, they can be a part of that. And while people on the other side, which is the majority of our community, they are building something, but they're also people who might not be. And the community events and like different workshops that we do, we make it accessible for people to participate as well.
Usually when you see startups, it's the person who started it saw something lacking. So for you, what did you see lacking out there in the world where it's like, you know what, Run Tech Club's going to fix this. Run Tech Club's going to be a solution to provide this. Like, what's your vision for Run Tech Club, and kind of how do you see it now?
Well, I mean, if you look at the obvious thing, was the running community was just exploding. But what I saw from a founder's perspective was that running was unstoppable, even with COVID. You could not stop it. And two, extremely accessible. It's just, you don't need anything. We don't need people to have fancy shoes. We don't need people to have a certain VO2 max. Like, people can just show up, they can walk, they get free coffee, and that's really it. We see a ton of what's disguised as community building things, but they're just another group of people who are selling you something, right? And so we didn't see any true communities where, hey, we're getting together. It's not even about the founders themselves. It's about how the members can be building something together. And so this is just potentially as a tool, as a vehicle, just a better way to build community that's non-transactional, which is why we don't really sell to our community in that sense. We don't, we're not like a brand sponsored club. Based on our strategy and how we think about building Run Tech Club, we have a completely different model that helps us sustain for the long term. So we're definitely here for the long run in that sense. Yeah.
Another pun.
Another pun. There you go.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting to hear, because it's rather than, and you do, I think a lot of, like, especially in LA, you see a lot of these collaborations. You see a lot of like, oh, run clubs and this person's going to come and there's this partnership and all that. But you're really kind of instituting it from the ground up. Like, we're going to empower you to kind of do your own thing. We're going to support you. I just did kind of the raise the roof thing, but we're going to support you in that endeavor.
Absolutely. I mean, the premise of this is, if you think, like, typically when groups start and it's really difficult for them to sustain, right? And so even for the different groups that we think about, we've done like all clubs meet, where it's like, who is working on different projects, or even some of the leaders, right, of different clubs. We've built a safe platform for them just to show up, and we absolutely don't care if people run with different groups and all that. Like, this is a very open space for them to learn and just explore different ideas, or just even how to grow as an entrepreneur, right? And so I think that's very needed, especially when there are more run clubs than I can count now. There used to be a lot less, but now there's so many different run clubs, and so we just interested in seeing who's building, who is looking for that type of help. And it's not for everyone, but for those who is interested in learning in that regard, this is absolutely open for them.
Yeah. So talking about schedule, because you guys have weekly runs every Friday, and then you have Vision Lab, and then you also have not meetups, but I think I'm butchering it. Is it meetups?
So at the core, we have weekly runs, and then we do community events that are typically around specific things that are helpful. And it's almost like the ground floor, right? So you come in, you're learning about we'll host, for example, how do you do game film in basketball, right? So we'll bring in an NCAA coach, and yeah, there you go. Someone from the NBA, WNBA, or the NFL, and we do game film. And it's a very fun exercise that people typically get to take away something. But the other layer is when you do community events like that, you help the community build long-lasting, like valuable relationships, because they get to open up and talk about things that just a bit more meaningful as well, and we provide them the framework to talk about it. So we have the community events. Vision Lab it's designed for entrepreneurs, but it's also designed for people who are interested in growing as an entrepreneur. That means maybe you don't have an idea, right? But you're curious about like what it would take to make an impact or take some risk in that sense. And Vision Lab it's designed in two parts. There's the one part where it's about deepening conviction, and then the other side of it is more the technical parts of it, where like how do you start and build something from 0 to 1 to the next steps.
Yeah.
And we program around those two specific things. And so for someone who is like, hey, I don't really like, you can't really know what you want to build until you truly know who you are. That's basically it. Like you can't really take that next step until you have a stronger belief and identity about yourself. When you are facing adversity in the race, right? When you're digging deep, how deep you're willing to go has a lot to do with self-belief. And you don't have self-belief if you don't know who you are. Like that's just the baseline for everything we do. And so, yeah, we can tell a founder or someone who's about to take on the challenge some very technical things about this is what you can change, this is what you can do. But more often than not, we end up going deep into that human layer for that person and helping them just navigate through life. And so that's why, even though it's definitely an entrepreneurial, journey, so many people can relate and still connect with this platform. So for us, like the widest, most accessible thing is all the things that we do for the community. And then Vision Lab, everyone can join if they want to, but there are different ways to level up as you're like, hey, I'm actually building a company, I'm looking for funding. And so that's when we sort of take them through the funnel, the journey, and help them continue to grow from there.
Yeah. You mentioned having that self-belief, that self-confidence. Navigating something like navigating the unknown and not having belief in yourself is just like the recipe of just pure, not disaster, because people do it, but it's so difficult, because if you don't know who you are and you're trying to build something where there isn't a clear vision, or not a vision, a clear map, a clear pathway, you can get so lost in the process. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And part of it is like there aren't enough people in your life typically that is just going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But not just honest. Like, I mean, being honest is better than not being honest. But when people are being honest with you, how do you take that? And what does that mean to you, right? And so most people would become defensive. And if there's one thing, one takeaway from Run Tech Club is helping people find their North Star and how to get there, right? And then basically find that unique focus to get to that North Star, which is it's not easy. Not everyone gets there, and most people don't even know what they're good at, right? And so, yeah, this is it's been a privilege and an amazing platform that we just get to do this. For me, every day.
Yeah, I bet. Or do you see, or maybe there is already Run Tech Club in other locations. We're based in LA, but do you have Run Tech Club popping up in other locations around the US or the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that it's more, concentrated in New York and Los Angeles. and in San Francisco, just because that's where a lot of the activities happen. We do have definitely aspirations to expand, and we have different groups we've done runs in New York, not as consistent, and we have people who are like, hey, we want to start this, right? And so 2025 is definitely a year where some of those are becoming more possible, as far as just finding the right person to do it, because we don't want to just have a run. We can, but there's so many groups that's running. Like New York has more run clubs than Los Angeles, and so if we do it, it has to be right. People need to know why they're doing this, right? And so that's why we don't do 6 runs a week, right? It's just like we do this one run. It's our office hour. It's our time to regroup, reframe, process the week, and just move on, right? If you fail this week, take that next step. Like let's get back together. But the point is, these runs have a specific cadence and a purpose behind it. But yeah, we're definitely looking to start runs in different cities. So if anyone is interested, absolutely talk to me.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. You're kind of doing it at your own pace, but it's more of, we're not just going to pop up anywhere and just run, because it is more than that. It's people that are like-minded individuals who enjoy running. And there's also a next layer, further aspect, further dimension, if you will.
Yeah, third dimension. I mean, people talk about that third space, right?
Yep.
Where these days, where it's like they're going to coffee, or it's sort of home, all that. We absolutely think of Run Tech Club. Yes, we're a community, but this is a third space. Yeah. And when you show up, whether it's a storefront, like people show up because they connected and they were like, hey, I'm just looking for a run, and they discover this group that is like, who are these people? I mean, believe it or not, I've gotten crazy emails that say like, you guys are ruining the running community, like by inserting tech in it. I'm like, no, it's not exactly like that. And but it's okay, because if we wanted to build a club with size and quantity, this is not the way to do it. We want to look at the value and just the depth that people can get. And so we can grow at our own pace, and we are essentially set up and designed specifically for that. Because once the right people get together and they themselves effectively start to grow and compound, and people understand, you don't have to tell them what it's about. Like they just get it because they're seeing the results from it, right? Companies growing, people growing, then it starts to attract the right type of people as well. And so that's kind of how we that's like our best case as far as our growth strategy.
Yeah, it's impressive to hear that you're not necessarily following the trend. You're following what's right for Run Tech Club. Your vision is there, your alignment is there. And so I have all the links from you, like the website, the runs, and all of that. I'll put that in the bio for people that are listening. I will insert that. What is one thing you want people to know about Run Tech Club? If anything they took away from this episode for Run Tech Club, what would it be? And then what is one thing you want listeners to know about you, Darius, as a human? What would it be?
One thing about Run Tech Club.
RTC.
One thing about Run Tech Club is that, like, we like to tell people that they can. It's the no and the but that is attached to it. You're gonna hear a lot of no's, and they are valid, right? Because as we grow, that is just the name of the game. It's the journey. But from that, out of the ashes come the phoenix. Now it's just that we would love to see that growth, and it's never too late. It's never too early. That's like what we like to tell people. Just start and grow with the right group of people.
I like it. Okay, and then one thing for one people to know about you, Darius the human.
Darius the human.
Darius the human.
I could go for something fun. One thing about Darius is I actually love to sing. Especially I was a voice soprano in the choir. So if you put me in a group where a bunch of people, hey, maybe it's about that time when people just walk around caroling. But I love singing. I love choral singing. So if you put me in a group of people, I probably would join in and do some singing.
Okay. Can people expect you to sing on a run?
No, they cannot expect
No.
me to sing. No. That would be like, yeah, that would be the next episode. We'll unlock that completely different. Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into rapid fire questions. This is more fun stuff about you.
Okay.
Okay, do you have any superstitions, or are you superstitious about anything, or quirky preferences?
I'm not superstitious. I would say how I tie my shoelace. Everyone has always told me I tie them wrong, but for some reason it does not come off. And I've taught my kids the same weird way to tie. You don't even have to even double knot it. It just doesn't come off. And so I always tie my shoelace before a race in that specific way.
In that way, is it the two bunny ears, or is it unheard of?
I've never seen anyone do that.
Okay.
It's like it's its own thing.
Its own thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you on the shoes though. I have to put on my right shoe before I put on my left shoe. Like it's back from like the college days. I used to tell myself like, oh, you're gonna have a shitty game if you put on your left shoe first. Like I don't know where that even came from, but to this day, running shoes or any shoes, right shoe first.
Okay. There you go.
So if you ever see me put my left shoe on first, something's wrong. Something's very wrong.
Yeah.
You gotta flag me down.
The down under. Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Okay. Are you bagel or donut or neither?
Definitely bagel. I'm a bagel. I'm not a sweet person.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure you are.
I'm not a sweets person. Yeah.
There you go.
Big sugar person. For me, just a good plain like the Mike's bagels with almond butter. Perfect for a run.
Okay, so you're more almond butter. Have you seen the bagels like in some of the New York sports, like lox, eggs, brie, arugula? I'm like, dude, that's not even a bagel. That's a sandwich now.
That's a sandwich. The point.
Okay. Do you have any special? Well, you kind of answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you have any special talents or hidden talents?
Special talents. I can sort of answer that. I can play the djembe pretty well and different African percussion instruments.
Oh, okay. Huh. Are there any videos of this?
I did a couple fashion shows where I probably won't be able to find it, but yes, I've done some interesting performances in my lifetime.
That's cool. Yeah. What is the instrument called?
That instrument is called the djembe.
Djembe, right? Okay.
But I was playing all sorts of weird, like Turkish drums, like little percussion, like hand drums and stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. Favorite place that you've ever traveled to?
Alicante in Spain.
Ooh. Okay. Why?
Amazing beach, but they have this 2-week fire festival where I have never seen people celebrate. I mean, you can call it party, but it's just celebration of life where it's not just young people, it's all generations dancing into the night basically for 2 weeks. And it was just one of my favorite memories.
Wow. So are you beach or mountains? You're the pick.
Mountains.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go beach because you mentioned the beach. Okay.
No, it was, tied to a memory. So
that's fair. That's very fair. Okay. All right. Last question. What are 3 things that you're grateful for?
I'm a person of faith for sure. I would say number 1, unconditional love. Second thing is my family, my wife, my kids. Third is the sounds of nature. Again, being a big music person, just I don't need music a lot of times when I'm running, but when you are up doing a trail run or whatnot, just taking it in, the views, but like really just the sounds. So those are the things I'm grateful for.
Well, perfect. That's the episode. You crushed the shit out of that. That was awesome.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for hopping on. Crush that. Okay, I'll hit stop.
Ooh.